Good morning.
Good morning. My submucosal endoscopy or third space endoscopy is more limited. I've observed a lot of the procedures here, but I have not done any of the procedures myself, not any part of it. So I'm all very new to it. I hope to get especially a lot out of the deconstruction of the procedures, the different types of procedures, and a theoretical background, I would say.
Okay. So it's to summarize that you've not done much practical or submucosal procedures. Nothing. Okay. So that's actually another interesting point of view to have to see that first time on camera. Thank you for agreeing to do it. Of course, I'll be there to support you. Thank you. Andre.
So good morning all. My experience in third space submucosal endoscopy, not of ESD, is limited as Peter Jans. So I did some part of ESDs, as we said yesterday. Yeah, but for poems, yeah, just very like 2 times, some part really very brief parts of it. So we can say it's mainly theoretical and like from ESD, because I think it's similar the approach to third space, but of course each procedure has its own technicalities and its own particularities. So it will be a burst, I think, today of knowledge from presentations and hands-on, because we will see all the different procedures like in poem. So both Z poem, normal poem, and G poem, and poem of diverticulum. So I'm very keen on to see how it goes.
It's interesting what you said about, I think you kind of said, or you didn't actually say, and I think it'll be interesting to observe for you three today, what is it about these procedures that is different to ESD? Because of course a lot of the techniques are similar. What new techniques do you need, and what techniques must you develop? You started to say some of them, I think, directionality in a tunnel, getting into a tunnel. I mean, these are the key differences, I guess, and then myotomy type procedures. So these are the 3 extra techniques that you probably need. People are divided, I think, between whether ESD is more difficult than submucosal endoscopy or vice versa. Of course, every procedure has its technical challenges. There are some poem that are very difficult. There are some ESD that are very difficult. And my view, if you ask me for a global view, is that ESD is more difficult than submucosal endoscopy. But, you know, it depends on the procedure very much. Okay, great.
There is a lot more involved, I think.
And patient workup. I think that's very important. So what you've said is extremely important. I don't agree with every single part of it, but I agree with absolutely with the broad statement that you must work the patient up properly. Most of the problems in submucosal endoscopy come because you didn't work the patient up properly. You know this, right? You know this because we together and previously Lynn have sat in the consultation, and we see these patients. You can see the damage you can do to these patients if you don't do the correct thing, or at least, okay, if you did everything, you exhausted all your investigation, and you did the wrong thing, okay, but not okay if you didn't bother to do the investigation and you just rolled the dice on the patient. It's not acceptable, I think. So that's one thing. I think you're right. A lot of people want to do these procedures, like they're desperate to do poem, and they don't want to take the whole patient. Same with G-poem. They want to do G-poem, but don't want to take the entire slightly psychological aspects to the patient with gastroparesis. So this is a very important part of it. The second thing that you said is also critically important, and that is that the day after with these patients is also very important, because the rest of the hospital doesn't understand that an endoscopic procedure can cause a capnoperitoneum. They don't understand that. They do an x-ray, oh my God, they're down the diaphragm, the patient's in the operating theater before you know it. And if you don't educate the rest of the hospital, then yeah, these patients get a really bad outcome. Very important. The only part that I don't particularly agree with, but probably didn't mean it, is about technique. And if you can do ESD, you can do this. Well, I agree with that, but there is a separate pack of knowledge. Not that you couldn't do it, because the tip control is again king. And who said it yesterday? It was your wife, wasn't it, Tomas, who said it yesterday? Tip control is still king or queen, but there are specific techniques that are important to these procedures. That's maybe the only thing I think. Okay, well, thanks for joining us and welcome. Okay, and then we have what we might call the back row, which is the observers. So Mihai, welcome back. Good to maybe say your experience with poem and what you're hoping to get out of today.
Welcome. My name is Mihai. I'm an interventional endoscopist, but with limited experience regarding ESD and submucosal endoscopy, mainly regarding animal training. I'm looking for diving into the deconstruction of the procedure so that I can start performing the cases.
Okay, perfect. You'll get that from us today, definitely.
Half year I have observed many cases with you guys, and yeah.
You want to do more? You want to learn more?
Of course.
Anything you can learn, you want to learn that, I know. Okay, great. So I think that summarizes it nicely. I think we have a very interesting group of trainees here who will be doing the procedures, and we also have a very interesting faculty who all come in different directions, myself included. So actually, I didn't talk about my poem experience. Maybe we should briefly talk about where I came from with poem. I came from, well, I got trained in Westmead with Michael Burke. I was there in 2015. He, I think in 2015, had just started doing poem, but really it was very limited experience. Then he really developed that while we were there. We used to get, it was the poem day. What day was poem? I think it was a Wednesday, Tuesday. Thursday, right? Anyway, whatever day it was, where we did a poem, and that was like the thing that was happening. Like poem was the procedure then, which was, what was it now? Coming on for 9 years ago. And yeah, I think he was learning by doing it, and then he wasn't teaching it, and then because of course he was doing a lot of things, then I kind of was interested in it, and I started to be the first one to do it when he wasn't in the room. So I'd do a bit of the tunnel. I would do never the incision, I think the tunnel mainly, bit of the tunnel, and occasionally I would, because he would be out of the room for long enough, I would do the myotomy. So I got this kind of stepwise instruction with a lot of observation, but I had never done a complete poem when I left there. And then when I came here, I tried in the UK, as John well knows, to do, I did one poem, but there was a lot of difficulties with the service. And so this is very, very relevant what you mentioned. A service must exist around these patients, and it didn't. And it was difficult to set up, and there was a lot of local politics about it. And then here in Ghent, there was someone doing it. So one of the colleagues was doing it when I got here, and he kind of just, I walked in and he said, first thing he said to me was, "Here you go, you can have this." and that was great for me and allowed me to grow into it. So yeah, and since then I did, probably 2 a week for the last 5 or 6 years. So I did a lot of poem, a lot of complicated poem. And I do think that this procedure can be extremely complicated. And I don't mean with adverse events, I mean complicated as in complex. And there are lots of nuances to it. And I hope that we do see some of those nuances today. All right, so